So today we are going to start talking about reproduction, and when we talk about reproduction, we have to start small, very first thing. So we need to learn about mitosis and meiosis, and so these two things are how cells divide, and our sex cells, which is sperm and egg, divide very differently from our somatic cells. Somatic mean body cells, so like your skin cells, eyes, organs, whatever. So I'm going to break everything down. We're going to do a graphic organizer together today. So you need to have your graphic organizer open and ready to go and to fill out. Okay, so let's start. So on here, I have on this graphic organizer, it starts with what are the types of cells produced in this process. So mitosis, it says somatic cells, and somatic means body. So body cells. And then there's gametes, which gametes are also called sex cells. So if you ever see a test or anything in the future, if they say sex cells or gametes, those mean the same thing. And so the male gamete or sex cell is the sperm, and for females, their sex cell or gametes are the egg. Okay, so the second row down, it says, does the replication of DNA occur prior to the process? And so, yes, it is. So before mitosis happens, or before meiosis happens, or meiosis, however you want to say it, you have to actually replicate the DNA first. So your cell, you'll have your little cell, will copy every single bit of DNA that's in there before the process even starts. So that's what it means. So both of them have replication of DNA. So let's go down to the third row. It says, does crossing over of chromosomes occur? And so in this one, when they say crossing over of chromosomes, they mean that you have two cells and that there will be a crossing over event. Like some chromosomes will move to one side of the cell and others will stay on the other side. So we're just filling out this graphic organizer today so that we can easily look at visual images on Thursday and do a much more complicated thing. So I know this might be difficult right now, but let's just get this filled out and then we'll do something on Thursday where you have visual representation. Okay, so crossing over just means that one side of the cell will get half the chromosomes, the other side of the cell will get the other half of the chromosomes. So for mitosis, no, crossing over does not happen. But for meiosis, yes, it does. So mitosis would mean no, meiosis would be yes. Okay, so you just write those in there. We're going to go down to the fourth row. It says, what is the number of times cells divide in this process? So in mitosis, this is only one time, okay? The cells only divide once. So this is like in your body cell, like let's say you need a new skin cell. One skin cell will divide just one time, and so you started with one cell, now you have two. So in meiosis, for your gametes or sex cells, it divides twice. So you have one cell, it divides once, which now you have two, and then those two divide again. So you end up with four. So in meiosis, it divides two times, and mitosis once. Okay, so we're down to the next column, our row. It says, what is the number of daughter cells produced at the end of the process? So I kind of gave you a hint here before, and so if you think about it, you can press pause and then maybe think on your own. I don't want to just start giving you guys stuff. This is really hard to do, not in person, obviously, but I'm learning, you're learning along with me on how to make this better. So what is the number of daughter cells? So if it only divides once and you start with one cell, you'll end up with two, right? And then for meiosis, if you have one cell and you divide into your first division, you'll end up with two. And after those two cells divide again, how many cells will they end up with? Four. Okay, so we're done with that one. We're on to the next one. It says, does the original cell have the same amount of chromosomes, which chromosomes are made of DNA, as the daughter cells? So a daughter cell, first off, is you have a parent cell, the original cell, and then after it divides and splits in half into two different cells, those two different cells are called the daughter cells, okay? I don't know why they call them the son cells, but they just call them daughter cells, okay? So in mitosis, since there is no crossing over, and there's no DNA split into either side of the cell, yes, they are identical. They have the same amount of chromosomes, okay? But in meiosis, since there is crossing over, since some chromosomes split apart and went over here and some went over there, you only have half. So you start, they cross over, they split apart, and now the cells they do not have identical amounts of chromosomes as their original cell. So we'll talk about why that is important later. Okay, so your next one, it says, how do the daughter cells compare to each other? So for mitosis, just think about it for a second. Are the daughter cells identical? Like, they have the same amount of DNA. They copied. Remember, it says replication occurred, so the DNA is identical, and they have the same amount of DNA. So do you think that they would be, identical or not? Or they're going to be different? Well, if they have identical DNA, they have to be the same. So in mitosis, the daughter cells are identical to each other. They're the exact same. But now we're doing meiosis. Since they split the DNA in half, do you think the daughter cells are going to be identical to each other? No, they're not, because they got different DNA. When there was crossing over of the chromosomes, the genetic material got jumbled up a little bit, okay? So there is a new mix-up of DNA now. So in meiosis, the daughter cells are not identical to each other because all the DNA crossed over and got jumbled up. Okay, so our next row, it says, how does the process affect genetic diversity? First off, is there any genetic diversity in mitosis? No, because there is not. There's no genetic diversity because each cell is identical. Everything is a clone of each other. You don't want, if mitosis, let's say eye color, if my eyes, which are blue, if they divided and changed genetic material each time, then all of a sudden maybe I have blue eyes this month, and then next month I have green, and then eventually I have brown, and then it changes back again. That does not happen. Our cells, if it's mitosis, any of the cells in our body, besides the sperm or egg cells, they are always identical to each other. That's why we stay looking the same. I mean, yes, we age, but besides that, aging has nothing to do with this. They always stay identical. So how does this process affect genetic diversity? Okay, and so for the next one, for meiosis, so how does that affect genetic diversity? Greatly, since every single time these cells divide, they exchange genetic information and they end up differently. So that's why, depending on what sperm, meets with what exact egg from a parent, results in different looking children, right? Unless you're twins. So, we're on our final row. It says, why is this a process important? So this process is important, and it's already filled in for you, but it's important for growth, repair of damaged cells, facilitate healing, replace dead cells, provide cells of the offspring produced through asexual reproduction. So some organisms, not us, reproduce through asexual reproduction, which means they don't have sex with someone else. They just some of them bud off a piece of themselves and regrow another organism that is identical to themselves. Some worms do this. Starfish, you can cut off an arm of a starfish and it'll grow a whole other starfish that is identical to itself. So they can reproduce that way, or they can reproduce sexually as well. So nature's weird. There's tons of different ways things can go down. For meiosis, though, the reason why this is so important is because it creates an egg and sperm that is needed for sexual reproduction. So if we did not have meiosis, we would all just be clones of each other. All men would look identical. All women would look identical. Nothing would have ever changed since the beginning of time, unless random mutations pop up. But we would all pretty much, everyone on Earth right now, all the men would look identical, all the women would look identical. Okay, so that's it for this graphic organizer. This will help us greatly once we go into the assignment that we have on Thursday. So I'm going to expect you guys to be able to use this. If you scroll down on your page, you'll see there's 2 questions down here. they're going to want you to read the scenario. So it's about David playing basketball, and then the second one is about Kylie and Kendall Jenner. So you're going to be answering questions about, is this mitosis or meiosis? How does it help with the scenario? And why would the process that you did not choose not work? So you'll see, read down there. If you guys have any questions, please show up to my office hours, which are every day from 9 through 11. I mean, Monday and Thursday, 9 through 11. But you can pretty much get in contact with me any day. Just hit me up on Google Classroom or Google Chat, Hangouts, whatever. Set up a time, and I'll meet with you and walk you through anything you need. Have a good day.